How's it going, guys? Victus Kane back again with another game in World of Warships. Today is going to be a game in the Tier 5 Russian premium destroyer, the Gremyashi. We are on the Fault Line map. Let's take a look at the matchup real quick. Oh, I should mention also, I am in a division teamed up with Termasil in his Furitaka and Carp on a Stick in his Nicholas. So, real quick, I'm already noticing that they do have a lot of cruisers, and while most of them are lower tier than me, it doesn't really matter. Even that St. Louis, if he catches me too close, he can still do a lot of damage. He's got an awful lot of guns. Battleship-wise, a couple of those guys are pretty big and slow, so they might make for easy torpedo targets later on, but still, there's a lot on the team that can hurt me, and that's pretty much the case no matter what destroyer you play. So you kind of always have to play a little careful. Thankfully, they just have a Langley for their carrier, so I don't have to worry too much about planes spotting me all the time, because there won't be that many up there. The Clemson and the Isakaze on the other team would be real nice if we could run into them and take them out, because they'll be relatively easy targets. The Clemson does have a lot of guns, but we should be able to outgun him. So my initial plan in this situation, and pretty much it's the same whenever I play any destroyer from any nation, is I want to try to get to a high traffic area or like the middle of the map or somewhere, and try to spot as many of the team as I can. And this lets me sort of know where I'll be most useful, and it also will hopefully let my team know which direction that they should head, but sometimes that can kind of just be a pipe dream. So what I try to do with the Gremyashi, because the torpedoes, they have decent range at 8 kilometers, but the Gremyashi gets detected at 7 kilometers. Meaning that you don't really have much in the way of sort of area to hide when you're fighting with torpedoes. We have a Kuma there on our team that's on his way to Valhalla with that sort of charge that he's doing against the entire enemy team there, and there he goes. But anyway, I try not to use the torpedoes too much because they are very slow. They only go, I think, about 55 knots, and I try to just use them, well, situationally. There are a couple of times later on where I use them, and I will talk about it more then. But what you saw me doing right there against that Furitaka is really what I try to do all the time in the Gremyashi, is just to stay as far away as my range will allow, which is about 11 or 12 kilometers on the guns, and just try to be as obnoxious as possible. Just keep hammering enemy ships with shell after shell after shell, because you have an incredibly fast reload, and you can see that unlike the American destroyers, your shell trajectory is much more shallow, meaning that it's a lot easier to sort of hit targets consistently at longer range, like I'm demonstrating here with the St. Louis. Now the St. Louis is a very easy target to hit because of how slow they go, but still, it would be a much more difficult shot to make with the American destroyers, where you're basically just trying to play basketball and land shells on top of their deck. So I'm kind of just sailing around here in the middle, back and forth. I'm waiting to see where the enemy team is going to concentrate a lot of their ships, and where our team is sort of going to go. And already it looks like our eastern flank is starting to fold a little bit. This St. Louis looks like he's not long for the world, so we won't have to worry about that. But we know that there's a destroyer over on the east. We can see up north in the mini-map, he's up there. And then we know that there is a Kuma over there as well. and plus any number of other ships, because we just lost all of our eyes on the eastern flank. And all we have down here protecting our carrier and our cap circle, because this is a standard battle and not just a domination, so we do have to worry about being capped. All we have down here is that one St. Louis, and the Langley isn't going to stand up very long against that Kuma either. So I make the decision, I'm going to head back towards our cap and try to cut off this Kuma and go protect the St. Louis and the Langley. Actually, I'll probably just end up protecting the Langley, because my guess is that the St. Louis isn't going to survive long enough for me to get down there. So while I'm sailing over in that direction, I've activated my engine boost. I activated it a little bit ago. But it's still going to take me a few minutes to get over there. What I'm sort of contemplating is that the Kuma is a very, very lightly armored cruiser, and while he does have sort of better gun performance, I would say, than me, and with the addition of this Phoenix that just showed up, that does present a few more problems. Well, but immediately let's look at this Isakaze, and we're going to try to take him out, because if I can keep my guns going on him, then this is going to be a real easy fight. He really can't hope to beat me in a gunfight. The Isakaze, the turrets just rotate too slow and they fire too slow, and the Gremyashi shells do a lot more damage. And actually, a point of fact, the Gremyashi's shells are the most heavy-hitting shells of any destroyer in the game. And that's not to say that the Gremyashi itself has the highest damage output of any destroyer in the game, because a lot of the higher tier destroyers fire much quicker and fire a lot more shells. But on a shell for shell basis, the Gremyashi has the most damaging shells, with their AP shells doing, I believe, 2,500 damage. So we managed to finish off the Kuma there, and he was super hurt, so it was a real easy kill. And you see I'm switching to AP here, and that's because the Phoenix is showing me his broadside, and you can actually do quite a bit of damage with your AP shells against lightly armored cruisers, as long as, like, they're showing you their broadside. So I just fire a quick set of torpedoes out there. I don't actually expect those to hit, but if the destroyer decides to turn towards me and try to come around this side of the island, maybe I'll get lucky. And the torpedoes reload quick enough that I'll have those tubes back again in time for them to be useful if I need to fire them at something else. So I'm trying to figure out which way this Phoenix is going to come around this island. It looked like to me he was doubling back and going to head around the side that I just came from. But now it looks like on the mini-map he is turning back towards the way that I was going before, so we're going to do a big loop and try to head him off. I have AP loaded, because if he comes around broadside and we're point-blank range, I can really punish him by putting a lot of rounds into his Citadel, because the Phoenix has a very easy-to-hit Citadel right in their boiler at the sort of amidships. You can see that earlier Carp was taken out in the pass in the 9-10 line, and we just lost Termasil in his Furitaka to that battleship there in the center. So we are very quickly running out of friendly ships. But it seems like the Phoenix has finally made up his mind, and he's coming around this side of the island, so I start heading back this way again, swinging my guns around, and I'm getting ready to come around here. Now, I'm holding off on using torpedoes because you can see on the minimap there are some battleships heading down here, and I want to be able to take them out with torpedoes. So here we go. I'm aiming right for the center, and watch this. That is a ton of damage. For 3 Citadel hits, I get a 4th one, I finish him off. Now I'm going to switch to the Isakaze, who got some torpedoes off on us, but we should be able to dodge these. Although it's going to be really close. And yeah, that was It was a lot closer than I should have let it get, but we dodged him, so it doesn't matter. And as I stated before, he really doesn't have a chance at beating us in a gunfight. Those torpedoes were kind of his last hope at taking us out before we gunned him down. And it looks like the carrier might actually get him with a torpedo here. Yep, there it goes. And I have to say, I love it when... That's like my favorite thing in this game, is watching destroyers just get lifted out of the water when they get hit by a torpedo like that. But the Arkansas Beta decided he wasn't going to commit to the pass, which is probably a smart idea, because I had torpedoes ready for him. But we do have a couple of battleships out there. I'm just going to fire a pretty big spread in that direction, and hopefully I can get lucky and catch one of those battleships moving into range. And a third one just pops up. The Miyogi is there in the middle as well. We've managed to pull the scores back to a more even standing here. So I'm just going to keep doing what the Grimyashi does best, and just pounding these ships at long range with my guns. And you really have to be ready that anytime somebody shoots at you, you need to be paying attention to when they shoot at you, so you can immediately start dodging. And that's really where, I guess, most of the survivability of playing destroyers like this comes from. We managed to get one torpedo hit on that Arkansas Beta, and he was burning before, and if he used his repair to put out the fire that we saw he had on him earlier, then that means that my torpedo and the fire that I just set on him are going to do a lot of damage over time, and maybe even can take him out, because he was on pretty low health. So we're trying to finish off this Furutaka, who's on incredibly low HP. But looking at the map, we do have 3 battleships in the center, although that Beta's looking pretty bad, and we got him. So that was pretty useful. But there's still 2 battleships sailing around in the center, and we have the Furutaka and the New York way down to the southwest of the map, and presumably their carrier is somewhere up north by their cap circle, would be my guess. So I have a decision to make at this point, because the scores are still very even. In fact, now they are even. Do I go after the New York, or do I head up north to the enemy cap circle? We're approaching the 7-minute mark. Now it's going to take me a few minutes to get up to their cap circle, and I am by far the fastest person left on my team. So if we want to win this game, we either have to, well, A, kill all the ships, or B, cap the enemy base. And killing all the ships could prove problematic, because even if we kill all 3 of the battleships, we still have to chase down the carrier, and there's no guarantee that he isn't tucked away in a corner up there somewhere. So I decide I'm going to leave the New York to the rest of my team, and I'm going to head up north and try to run the gauntlet of these 2 battleships here, and try to get into the enemy cap circle before the 3-minute mark, because that's how long it takes for one ship to successfully cap the enemy base. And I'm going to try to do that and win the game that way. If I run into the carrier up there, then great, I can try to take him out, but we'll worry about that when we get there. And I managed to get right in between those shells, and even though the Miyogi isn't the best battleship in the game, and I think I'm being pretty generous by even giving it that moniker, if he lands an HE shell on us, even just one, that'll hurt. It'll hurt pretty bad, and you can see, even just from his secondaries, I'm taking a lot of damage. But I pretty much have to keep this current heading that I'm on, because, again, we're about 5.5 minutes, and I need to get to the cap circle very quickly. So I fire some torpedoes at where I think he's going to turn, and I'm just trying to do as much damage to him as possible, and basically just trying to duel a battleship at point-blank range with my guns. So It looks like he turned right into my torpedoes, so that's nice. And thankfully our Wyoming came up north and is dueling their Wyoming, so that's going to distract him, and I should have, at this point, a free run into the cap. We just lost our last ship down by our cap circle, which means now the New York down there is probably going to be heading into our cap. But I should get into the enemy team's cap before he gets into ours, considering I'm just much faster than he is. So I'm trying to give the Wyoming on our team what help I can, but I'm starting to exit my effective gun range, and I'm about to go to a mountain here, which I just redecorated with the guns. But we've made it into their cap, and we have 4 minutes left. But there's a problem. If I take even one hit, which is looking more and more likely now that the enemy Wyoming just killed ours, and now I'm the last person left on my team. I don't know if those torpedo bombers have fired all their torpedoes yet, so I'm just going to act like they have, or sorry, that they haven't, because I don't want to risk it. But the Wyoming is coming up north, and you see the carrier just popped up on the mini-map. So he was, in fact, just right up here by the cap circle. But if I take even one hit, my base capture progress is going to get reset, and I'm starting to run out of time where I can effectively recap, essentially. So in about 10 seconds, I can no longer take any more hits, which shouldn't be too much of a problem, because all I'll really be having to do is dodge torpedoes, which isn't too terribly difficult. Right now I'm just trying to focus on killing this carrier, or at least set him on fire, so that he can't receive his torpedo bombers and or launch them. Because even if his bombers are missing me with their torpedoes, they can still spot me. So I want to try to knock him out as quickly as possible. But I'm saving my torpedoes, because if that Wyoming comes charging up here, I need to be able to kill him very quickly, and the only way I can do that in the Grimyashi is with torpedoes. I can pinprick him to death with my HE, but remember, I can't take even a single hit at this point. Or it'll probably be a draw. I actually didn't see when the enemy started capturing our base. So here I'm flipping back and forth between watching the Wyoming and watching the Langley, because I need to make sure that as soon as he starts firing, I can't sail straight for too long. You see, shells are just barely missing me, and unfortunately the Langley put the fire out long enough to get torpedo bombers back up. And here's where I make a little bit of a mistake. I turn to the right because I see the torpedo planes coming towards me, and I don't want to give them an easy hit. So I turn towards the Wyoming, and I'm hoping that the torpedo bombers will try to maneuver to get to my side. But they're not. They're flying straight towards me. And why this is a mistake is I can't turn anymore, because those torpedo planes will get me. But they're also running me right into that Wyoming. And the closer I get to him, the easier it's going to be for him to hit me. And at this point, I'm so close. He shoots again, he's probably not going to miss. But it doesn't matter. We managed to win the game right there at the very end, in a very sort of harrowing last-minute victory where I was likely about to get reset. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the game, and I will catch you in the next one.